Good morning, everybody. You know, time is really a valuable resource we have. We all have the same amount, but it's an extremely valuable resource. And just really want to appreciate everyone taking a little of that time and investing it this morning to hear what's going to be a remarkable story. So thank you for that. It's going to be a great morning because I know some of you know Tracy's story. And it's a pretty amazing story. And some of you know Philip's story. And that's like remarkable. But the intersection of their two stories is something that a Hollywood movie writer, when they're not on strike, couldn't make up. It's amazing. You're going to hear that today. Yeah, I'm Steve Walks, and part of why I'm up here doing this is I was there from the beginning of their journey. I've known Tracy since 2006. Our office space was kitty corner from Lifetime Fitness, and so I went over there to get an assessment, and anybody that has, quote, needs, special needs, they would send to her. And I have, and I do still have special needs. And that began a twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday meeting. And I've always told her my goal is always to be the after picture rather than the before picture. That has nothing to do with her, that's more me. But it began a remarkable journey here. And then Philip, about 2012 comes along, and I oversee the leadership of a Friday morning neighborhood Bible study group. And this young man walks in, and he's going through a lot. I'll tell a little more about that later, and you'll hear about that today. Lots going on with that, and he comes in. It's right at the end of the spring semester, and then we're actually going to do a thing in the summer. Well, this guy Philip says, "Hey, I'll take over getting coffee and pastries every Friday during the summer." And that led our time together. So we have that going on. And then a couple years later, and I truly say, this is a Holy Spirit thing, because I don't think about this stuff. My wife of 40 years is sitting back. I don't think about putting people together. It just isn't in my mindset. And so I show up and I asked Tracy, I said, how old are you? And she tells me, and I said, are you seeing anybody right now? No. Would you be open to maybe meeting someone? Maybe. And so I take that information, I go home from work that day. Deb and I are living in an apartment complex as we're building our house. Literally right across the greenway from our apartment complex. This is a huge complex. Right across the greenway is where Philip and Chloe were living. So I asked Deb, I said, hey, I had this thought about Tracy. Do you think about Philip? How old do you think Philip is? Do you know if he's seen anybody? Because, of course, they talked more than we did. And she goes, I'm not sure. She says, well, next time I see him, I'll have to ask. So literally, I look out the window, and there he is with his dog out in the green. I said, well, I guess God's putting this on. I need to get out there. So I walk over to him. I said, uncomfortably, I said, hey, Philip, how old are you? And are you seeing anybody? And he said, well, Steve, thanks for asking, but I thought you were married. No, that's a joke. He didn't say that. And that began the introduction to those two. And that began a journey that you're going to hear about today, which is pretty remarkable. So before I introduce Philip, I want to take a moment. Can we have a little moment of silence, and I'll follow up with a prayer for the tragedy that happened last Saturday, and it continues happening over in Israel. So please share with me a moment of silence, and I'll pray. Lord, the news of last Saturday and to see the images of just, it reinforces, Lord, that you say there's evil in this world, and we got to see that evil, Lord. And it's tragic. And we just ask for your prayers of the folks, of families that were impacted from death of family members, of children, of parents, etc., Lord. We just ask for your supernatural peace, your intervention into that situation, provide comfort for those who are mourning, Lord. And we'll give you the praise for that. In your name we pray. Amen. So my friend Philip, when I say I get to introduce Philip, this is how I introduce Philip to everybody new I meet. I said, when I met Philip, his marriage was dissolving. He had lost his house. His job went away. And then he got West Nile with these insane headaches. And then things got hard. And that's truth. And you're going to hear that today. So with that, I'm going to introduce my friend, Philip Robert.
Thank you, Steve, for that introduction. When I was deep in my struggle with CRPS in 2016, I was forced to make a choice, and that choice was going to be, do I turn my pain into purpose, or do I simply turn out the lights and check out? Surprisingly enough, those of you who knew me back then, and I see one of my friends in the room, Shannon, who knew me back then, when I was 20 years old in 1987, I was faced with that same circumstance. I remember looking in the mirror and did not recognize that person that was staring back at me. And if you've ever seen the Dallas Buyers Club, I looked like Matthew McConaughey. My face was sunken. The tears were coming down my face. And in that moment, I had cried out to God for a long time. Basically 11 years of substance abuse prior to that. And I was trapped. And the reason why that song is of significance to me is not only that was the opening song of their tour in April of 1987 that I went to in San Diego, but that really encompasses how I felt. I want to run, I want to hide. And so here I'm looking in the mirror and I just cry out for help. I was at my wit's end at that point, and I was ready to just turn out the lights. 11 years of trauma, 11 years of just struggling with this thing that I had no control over, and I cried out, and something happened magically that day. And what it was for me is that malady was removed from me. I don't know how it happened, I don't know why it happened, but it launched me on a journey for the next 25 years. For the next 25 years, I tried to find what it was that was keeping me down, and it was the depression and the anxiety, and I didn't recognize it as that at the time. And what I really understood was that it was rooted in trauma. So as Steve mentioned, blew through marriages, lost my house, lost my job, and then in 2012, I became a Christian, and I thought, this is it. This is the answer. Like, my life is going to be so good. And I was sorely mistaken. It wasn't just that it was going to get good. It became hard, and hard in a really, really tough way. But I will tell you this, that I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. Because even though it was hard, it's been filled with so much fruitful experience. As Steve said, shortly after that, I got bitten by a mosquito and developed a severe case of West Nile virus. And West Nile virus is a neuroinvasive viral infection. And to describe what it's like having two flaming golf balls put in the back of your skull, and there is just an incessant pain. I struggled for over a year with that illness, and I couldn't work. My daughter Chloe's here with me today, saw that front and center, and it was just such a challenge for me. And so I was faced with the first real issue with chronic illness in my life. I didn't know where to go or what to do. How's that? Is that better? All right. So after I got sick in 2012, I met my friend Peter Palmer. Some of you may know him. That's Peter on the left. He had this infectious smile, this Jamaican accent. He was just an amazing man. What I didn't know is that he was struggling on his own. He had multiple myeloma. And in 2014, when he was finally hospitalized, I used to go visit him on the weekends, and we would sit and we would read. He used to say, "Hey, Philip, just read something to me, whether it's from Isaiah or Joshua or whatever." And on this day, I remember it distinctly because it was January 11th, 2014. In Dallas that day, it was just beautiful. It was much like today. It was this beautiful, cool, bright, sunny day. And he said, "Read from that book." And I was like, "Which one is that?" He goes, "It's Streams in the Desert." I'd never heard about it before. January 11th. So little did I know that this passage that I was about to read to Peter was really a prelude to what has happened over the following 10 years. So let me read it for you. It says, "Store up comfort. The world is full of hurting and comfortless hearts. But before you will be competent, you must be trained. And your training is extremely costly, for to make it complete, you too must endure the same afflictions. Consequently, your own life becomes the hospital ward where you're taught the divine art of comfort. You will be wounded, so that you will learn how to render first aid to the wounded everywhere. Do you wonder why you're having to experience some great sorrow? Over the next 10 years, you will find many others afflicted in the same way. You will tell them how you suffered and were comforted. As the story unfolds, God will apply the same anesthetic he once used on you to them." And then, this is my favorite part here, "Then in the eager look followed by the gleam of hope that chases the shadow of despair from the soul, you will know why you were afflicted, and you will bless God for the discipline that filled your life with such treasure of experience and helpfulness." God comforts us not to make us comfortable, but to make us comforters. So think about that. Your life becomes the hospital ward. You too will be wounded. It didn't make sense at the time, and I look back 10 years later, and I just can't believe how prophetic that was for me, because what we've created with the Burning Limb Foundation addresses some of those very same things. That was a monumental day for me, and in fact was one of the pivotal points in my life. Unfortunately, we lost Peter in March of 2014, shortly after that. But he taught me a lot. He was like a brother to me. He was just like such an amazing person. One of the things that happened, probably not too long after that, I was in my kitchen, and I was just hammering some shelving in, and a simple task, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks. The lights went out. Think about when you have a TV and you don't get any reception, and you've got that static. That's what it was. If you close your eyes, that was what it felt like. I got my bell rung, and what I didn't understand at the time was that I was having what's called a pulmonary embolism. So I had a clot move from, and I didn't know this before, was I had a clot in my left leg, and a piece of clot broke up, went through my heart up into my lungs. And the thing about pulmonary embolisms is this, that 30% of the people that experience a pulmonary embolism don't have those symptoms. They just die. So I'm fortunate enough, obviously that didn't happen to me, but I'm so grateful that that was something that for me to go through that launched me on another trajectory. It was just another part of the crucible for me. And what happened from that was I developed something called complex regional pain syndrome. And let me describe that for you. It's like stepping on a Lego barefoot. I felt like my left foot was dipped in hot lava, that someone put a bag of bees on my foot, and then they were hitting me with an electric cattle prod 24/7. You can imagine it's probably not a way to get food, drink, eat, or sleep. Really, really challenging. And so I went to my doctor, and he looked at me with this pained look on his face, and he said, "Philip, I'm really sorry to have to tell you this, but you have CRPS, and there's no cure." So I looked at him. He said, "Don't worry, but whatever you do, don't Google it. We'll get you a neurologist, we'll get you a pain management doctor." What do you think I did when I left? Problem is that when you look up something like that, it says this is a suicide disease, also known as. And so, that was really my next part of my journey with chronic illness. So I did everything. I visited the doctors, did everything they asked me to do, but they were worthless. Let me just say this. While there's a place for me with my ongoing issues, there's a place for me with traditional medicine, but in this case, I think that their playbook is limited. So I've got a clear bias against traditional medicine when it comes to treating this disease, which is why, one of the reasons why we created the Burning Limb Foundation was to allow people to have access to non-traditional medicine. So, I gutted it out by sheer determination, but over time, that determination just, it took such a toll on me. Every day I just said, just don't quit. Don't quit before the miracle happens, just one more day. And I think that there's a lot of power in that wording. And there's a reason why I didn't quit. One of them is sitting right there, my daughter Chloe, Tracy, my wife, my son Tristan, and my other son Ryan. And they gave me the hope and the courage to just stick it out one more day. Tracy wrote this about me. And she said, "The last few months of watching you suffer, not only physically, but then emotionally, to watch the light dim from your eyes and sense your pain of not wanting to live in suffering another day is utterly heartbreaking." And to have your wife write that about you, I think is painful to look back on, but it really tells a story of where I was at. I mean, I was ready to just call it quits. This is a picture of Tyler Gray, and I love going to this quote. Tyler was a Delta operator, was medically retired, got blown up in Iraq. I think it was 2007. He says this, and I think this is just an amazing quote for me. And he says, it's just absolutely amazing the amount of trauma that the body can withstand. When you think you've reached your end, you can go one step further. It's all about motivation and mindset. Now, granted, I don't believe that you can just think your way out of this issue. It is part of a long-term strategy for dealing with chronic illness. It doesn't take it away, but this is the part. The more fundamentally you are broken at your core, the more you're forced to mutate into a better version of yourself. I love that quote. I live with it every day. It's been my mantra for a long time. I know today I must be Superman because I'm a better version of myself because I've gone through so much morphing, right? It's been the crucible for me. I can sit here and say, why me? Why have I not been healed? Even though CRPS is no longer an issue for me, I suffer from post-thrombotic syndrome because I have no valves in my legs. I've been a believer for over a decade. Why not me? And we talked about this at our men's group on Friday, as a matter of fact, and the suffering that goes on. And I'll tell you why. For me, the fight prepares us for the purpose. The fight prepares us for the purpose. So 100%, I've been down this road, and had this never happened to me, this would have never happened. The Burning Limb Foundation would have never happened. All of the families that we've been able to touch all of that would have never happened. And so the fight prepares us for the purpose. Wasn't too long ago that Tracy invited me in to watch a scene of this little miniseries called The Chosen. And in this scene, for some reason, it particularly pierced my heart. And in this scene, Jesus is talking to little James, and Jesus is about to send little James and all the disciples out to go heal the sick and wounded. And little James is asking him, how am I supposed to do this? Why have you not healed me? And Jesus then begins to explain the significance and say, if I healed you right now, you'd have a good story. But imagine how great the story will be if I don't heal you. And then he goes on to say, think of the story that you will have if I don't heal you now, to proclaim that you still praise God in spite of this, to show people how you can be patient in your suffering while here on earth, knowing that you'll spend eternity with no suffering. So hold on a little longer, and when you discover yourself finding true strength because of your weakness, and you do great things in my name, the impact will last for generations. So that's really where I was. I think why it affected me the most is that it absolutely pierced my heart because of that. That's my story, is that in spite of me not being healed from my physical malady, I'm still doing everything that is powerful and hopefully will be impactful for generations. Chronic illness, let's just say it sucks. It crushes the spirit. It sucks out all of the joy, and extracts such a toll on everybody it touches. Most of what has worked for me is rooted in these principles, and these are my core values, and that is, it's my faith, it's my gratitude, and it's my enduring spirit, but it's also my desire to be a servant, to serve others, and to be helpful in that manner. That being said, I firmly believe that having something like CRPS is not a death sentence. There is a methodology in which we can survive and thrive in this type of situation. But, my battle with post-thrombotic syndrome really has led me to this one phrase that I love as well, and it just says, embrace the suck. And I know you know exactly what that means because you're out there every morning with Tracy, and she's working hard. And so here's the thing. I went through a period of time, about 2 years, where I felt really isolated. I felt really alone, and it affected my relationship with my wife, my kids, everything about me. Let me tell you, it took me some time to get to a place where I really understood that, and it was this. It wasn't that I was isolated, but I was separated. And I firmly believe God separated me for two reasons. One is to teach me the tools that I needed to live my destiny. And then secondly, it was so I could clearly hear his voice of exactly what he wanted me to do. My life revolves around chaos. It is this mass inertia of just things. It's work. It's all of these other things. And I never had the ability to sit down and listen. And I think that's one of the things that got me to a point where I could not just accept it. I could sit there and say, why me, but it didn't make any sense until I could really clearly hear him that this is what I want you to do. That was really important, but that was, those were some of the two hardest years of my life. So I think the hardest, most traumatic event that's ever going to happen to you in your life can be your greatest gift if you let it. There's something about that going through those trials, and it reveals character. I don't think it just gives us character. I think it reveals it. It allows you in the overcoming of that trial to develop gratitude. It teaches you how to have the empathy to treat other people. I think those are just so important in that, you're going through exactly what you're going through today in order to be the person that you're supposed to be. From that perspective, I think, when we don't get healed, we choose how we react to it. I'm not a victim. I'm chosen. That's just how I choose to deal with my chronic illness today. And it's that mindset. But make no mistake, this is a war. You're at war. There is no cavalry coming. You're the resistance. Be an advocate for yourself. And again, most of us that have been trialed with something as complex as CRPS, we have to be our own advocate. Put in the emotional work. The emotional work, I think, is so important. I talked about the trauma in my life. It wasn't that I was abused as a child. It was that I experienced trauma, whether it was rejection or whatever the case may be. But put in the work. It's a lifelong process, but do it. You can't free yourself of the shackles of everything that you're weighed down with unless you drop the rock, right? Drop the rock. So I've talked a little bit about, kind of the forging and the crucible. I've talked a little bit about kind of change is where the magic happens. And let me switch gears here and talk about the why. And the why for me is two things. So I was coming back from Arkansas after having treatment, and just this thought germinated in my mind of how could I give the blessing and allow someone else to do the same thing that I had just experienced. I was fortunate enough to be able to afford a process and a treatment that was not paid for and covered by insurance. So I was able to afford that, but not everybody can. And so I created the Burning Limb Foundation for two reasons. And one is for us to just give money to people that, in the form of a grant, so that they could go seek treatment for these outside the box types of methodologies. And then secondly, I really felt like there was the need to create a platform by which we could crowdfund, if you want to call it that, but so that people could sponsor individuals so that they could also go have treatment. And so, I may not be the smartest guy in the room, but I'm a really good fast follower, okay? And what I did is I took a page out of the playbook from Compassion International, which, if you're familiar with Compassion International, you can sponsor a kid in Africa or South America or wherever. And so I really designed something that I thought would be useful to help families fund treatment. So I'm just so filled with gratitude to all of our donors through the years. I'm just so grateful for the ability to do the work for you, and you've done the work through me. Let me just share that, we went from $5,000 in donations in 2017 to 1.3 million last year. We've done over $1 million this year. We funded over 500 grants for our patient partners, as I call them, for these families. But it wouldn't have been possible without the families that have supported us. And there's a couple of families, too, in particular that I wanted to share, particularly the Seiden and Ruta families. They have just been with us from the very beginning, and they have partnered with us. They have been huge supporters of us, and they've allowed to do this work. Unfortunately, we had to create the Elle Seiden Memorial Grant because of young Elle Seiden, who lost her life to this illness in 2018. And we focus specifically on young women under the age of 25. So we're grateful that we're able to offer that grant on an ongoing basis. We're forever grateful to you. There's also a lot of families who remain anonymous, and they allow us to fund our daily operations, to give those grants. They are just an amazing group of people, and they have been our biggest supporters. Without them, we certainly couldn't do it alone. In 2016, I went to the Sparrow Clinic. It's this little tiny clinic in, of all places, Fayetteville, Arkansas. You see a picture of me here with Dr. Katinka. She's the founder, CEO. She's the one that gave my life back to me. She's the one that fixed me. Her and her team did all that they could to give me my life back. This was taken in August of 2016. I'd done about 10 weeks of treatment there. If you'd seen pictures before, that was not what I had looked like. But she has been kind of the bulwark of treating people with chronic illness. She is an angel on earth, without a doubt. So Dr. K, thanks so much for all of your hard work and partnering with us. Sparrow Clinic is our greatest ally and biggest partner. When somebody asks me what to do when they're faced with a situation like that, this is the first phone call that I ask them to make, because she is absolutely, like I said, she's just an angel walking on earth. Matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, I spent a full week at the clinic, and I always go back there to just share my experience, strength, and hope with them. And I find there's just so many people that are fighting these battles that you can't even comprehend. And so when I go and I sit with them, I get an opportunity to pray over them and their broken bodies, and we always pray for healing for them and their recovery. I got a couple of special people I want you to meet. This is my friend Jenna. She's my hero. Jenna's 22. You see that picture on the right that was taken down at First Watch last year. And you see her on the left. She spent a year at the clinic, an entire year. And I can't even explain to you the trauma that this young lady has gone through. But when I met her in 2019, she just didn't want to give up. And so she spent, like I said, an entire year there. I would ask for prayers for Jenna specifically because of this. Last year, she was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma. She lost one leg already, and she's fighting the battle of her life. And when I was up there a couple of weeks ago, I had an opportunity to sit with her, and she shared some of the most magnificent things that I've heard coming out of a 22-year-old. And she's scared, and she needs us to help her manage this. I don't know what the outcome of that is going to be, but Jenna, if you're watching, I love you. You are my hero, and you showed me what it's like to just never give up. One more time. Here's Heather. Heather's from South Africa. She came to the United States with her mom in the middle of the pandemic, and treatment was working for her, but it was extended time and time again. And every time we think we'd get over one hurdle, she would have one more obstacle placed in front of her. And so they ran out of money while they were here. Can you imagine being in a foreign country, not knowing where that next nickel is going to come from? And you know what? I was introduced, this is just how the magic happens again. I was introduced to this family out in West Texas, and they said, we would like to fund her for a large portion of her stay. And that got her through. And then guess what? She had another setback, and they had to extend their time here again. So you know what? I went back to the well. I don't usually like to do this, but I went back to the well to that same family, you know what? And they stepped up, and they gave. And look at this young lady here on the right now. She's living her best life, 16 years old. That's why we do what we do. So here's my why. So what we do is a program with the Burning Limb Foundation. It's impactful, right? So being known as a suicide disease, CRPS, anybody that we help get out of that situation, we remove the propensity for them having that even as an option, right? So we know it brings hope to families. What we do is achievable, but it's also scalable. And I use the analogy here again of just giving you the numbers. We've gone from 5 grants in our first year to over 100 in 2023. That's 20x. This is something that we can grow into the ability to serve just so many more families. It's tangible. Pain is measurable on the scale of 1 to 10, right? It's a very discrete thing when you think about chronic illness. So we're able to measure that when we ask, patients when they begin fundraising for us, or they ask us for a grant, we say, kind of what's your number? And they'll say, I live at a 7, 8, 9, 10 every single day. And you know what? When they get out of treatment, God willing, they're at 0 or 1 or 2. I live at about a 3 or 4 every day, but you know what? I thrive in that. And my goal is to get somebody to a place where they can thrive, whether it's a 0 or not. But we have the ability to measure that. Then this last one, I grew up in the investment business, spent 30 years in the investment business. And so everything that we've done is basically around return on investment. How immeasurable is the return of changing someone's life generationally, and especially, again, I've got my young daughter here with me, for a young woman to be able to become a wife, a mother, to have kids, to impact the people on the planet. That's a demographic that, just again, it's so close to my heart. We're helping people get their lives back. It's generational change. I can't guarantee you this. I can't guarantee that you're going to be healed from whatever it is that is afflicting you. I struggled a long time with why was I not being healed. But even having post-thrombotic syndrome and working at a high level in the industry and then running a nonprofit, I still live a very thriving life. But I've used the tools that I talked about to help me get here. My prayer is that you can get there too. I spent a lot of time when I was younger feeling like I was looking up from the gutter. Like, why are all these people doing all these normal things, and here I am left, I'm stuck in the gutter. And there was this wise old man, his name was Joe. And Joe told me, he goes, when you get to a place where you feel like you're on the sidewalk and you're looking down on those folks, reach back down and pull them up so that they can be with you. Share that generosity with them. Because of what we do, that's ultimately what we're trying to do. We're trying to reach people and bring them up and share the love with them. We do have a QR code if you feel inclined to give. Generosity is something that we always love to see. It helps us perform kind of the things that we are doing, on a daily basis in impacting lives. I do commit to you that we will be great stewards of your generosity. That is my absolute 100% commitment to you. I want to close with this. Many of you might recognize Nick Vujicic. Actually, he married a girl from McKinney. As a matter of fact, Nick was born with no arms and no legs, and I had an opportunity. As a matter of fact, Tristan and I saw him a couple years ago at church here in Frisco. He talks about the time where he prayed for his father who was diagnosed with cancer. And he didn't get the miracle. And he said, I prayed for my father and I didn't get the miracle. He says, when you don't get the miracle, be the miracle. Be the miracle. But he also says, go and try and be the miracle for someone else. That is the great medicine of the heart. He's just got an amazing story. But that is my why. I was called to do that. This is my ministry. This is my why. I'm so grateful to be able to have an opportunity to be up here with you today and to see so many friends and families. And again, I've got Shannon here with me, who we go back almost 50 years, basically. And my friend Steve, and of course all my family members. And so I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to share with you today. I want to do one thing. If you've got one of those little gift bags that we gave you, should have a little note card in there. And I want to ask, what is the biggest pain or obstacle that you have to overcome in your life? And if you don't have anything around, just think about this, right? What is the most, and think about that. To me, if we don't have goals and the ability to have things that we need to overcome, then we stay stagnant. But so I think at this point we'll pause for a little bit and allow you to think about that. If there's anybody right now that may want to share theirs, we could certainly do so. If there's anybody that wants to share, we would take your testimony here. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for coming today. We certainly appreciate it, and we're going to take a. Are you ready? Okay. I guess we're ready for the next part. So let me introduce my wife Tracy. I'm fortunate enough to be able to do this. How can I say it? By the way, it's Tracy's birthday today. Happy birthday to Tracy. That's right. What a day. You know, Tracy has been, we've been married 8 years. We've been together before that. We've been through just this major cancer struggle. All of the things that you put together as a blended family, those are challenges in and of themselves. But she has been my rock. She has been my muse. She has been my teacher. She has been my partner. She has been my wife. She has been everything that you could ask for, a mother to my daughter, an amazing mother in her own right. But she has walked every step of the way with me in this. I've seen her come in the last 8 years. It's really just even hard to describe how far she has come. She has really developed from someone who was just from a business perspective, a personal trainer and a nutritionist, into somebody that has really found their calling as a life strategist, as a coach. I can just tell you that, all of the things that I hear her talk to her clients about, and that she shares with me about the things that she tells people, it blows my mind to see where she has come from. She has just this way about her that she innately knows, exactly what to say at the right time for those people. And so I am just so thrilled to introduce my wife, Tracy Robert, up to the stage at this time.
Thanks, honey. It's 1979. I'm 5 years old, and I'm sitting in the back of my dad's white Thunderbird, crying. My parents are sitting in the front seat having one of those adult conversations. And Chicago's "If You Leave Me Now, You'll Take Away the Very Part of Me" is playing, and I'm sobbing when I'm hearing the words of this song, and I'm 5. My parents at some point turn to look at each other, look back at me, and say, "What is wrong with you?" And I say, "I just want you back together." And they got back together. So ever since I was young, my family called me a hopeless romantic. I mean, I wanted the fairy tale, the Notebook, the letters to Juliet, the crazy, stupid love kind of love. Instead, at 22, I marry a pastor. We have this magnet on our fridge that says, "The true character of ministry is a servant's heart." So I'm at church every weekend, praying, teaching, listening. I'm following all the rules with a smile on my face and a song in my heart. Excellent. Thanks. Okay, is that better? 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 All right, now where was I, guys? Where was I? What was I doing? I was a pastor's wife. All right, here we go. All right. So every weekend I'm at the church and I'm praying and serving and doing all the things with a smile on my face and a song in my heart. And 7 years in, I have an affair. And then I have an affair on my affair guy. After I get divorced, I figure I'm going to date the only perfect person, God. 6 years later, I go on my first date with Philip, and it's perfect. Actually, when we're driving to dinner, we see a double rainbow, a sign from God. A year later, Philip's holding my hand when we find out that I have cancer, and he's with me through 28 chemoradiation treatments. When I find out I'm gonna need a permanent colostomy bag, we cry together on my green couch. At some point, he looks up at me and he says, "Why don't we get married, like now?" I plan a wedding in 10 days. Rings, invitations, the dress, honeymoon in Hawaii. It's perfect, it's romantic, it's made for Hollywood. 6 months later, we're at the oncologist's office. And Dr. Lee comes in, she takes a look and she says, "Tracy, the scans look great, you're good to go." She turns to look at Philip, who's complaining that his leg is burning. He's wearing a mask and an orthopedic boot. He looks like he's in worse shape than me, and I was going through cancer. And she says, "You need to go get that checked out." So I'm on the phone with my mom for 30 minutes, and Philip calls in and he says, "They're rushing me to the hospital. I got clots in my legs and in my lungs." Ultimately, he's diagnosed with an alphabet soup full of ailments I would not wish on my worst enemy. The man that held my hand can't even be touched, and he wants nothing from me. No love, no support, nothing. A year later, he looks at me and says, "I'm not even attracted to you anymore. We should just get divorced." I think to myself, I cannot fail again. I cannot start over again. But 3 years later, I ask him to leave. You see, what I didn't understand is that love wasn't about losing yourself in someone else. It was about loving others as yourself. Today, my marriage looks nothing like the fairy tale I hoped for. It's better, because I gave up the hopeless romantic and traded in the hopeful realist in love and in life. And now I get into the trenches with my clients to be able to help them overcome their past obstacles and help create their new happy ending. So I want you guys to do something with me before we get started. I have 3 critical steps I want to share. Inside those little thank you boxes, there is a little small journal. Take it out, and there's a pen. So here's what we're going to do. All right, I'm going to give you 3 questions. All right, we're going to go 30 seconds with each one of these questions. So if any of you have paralysis of analysis, you're going to have to lay that on the ground right now. We got 30 seconds, whatever is going to come to your mind, okay? So the first question is, what is one area of your life you need to change? Is it guilt? Is it unforgiveness? Maybe a relationship you want to see improved, an area you need self-discipline? Maybe it's your finances that you need to get real with. We got 30 seconds. Ready? Go. All right, go ahead and put those pens down. All right, second question. What are your favorite excuses? Your favorite excuses. So, if you're like, I don't have excuses, let me share some of my favorites. I don't have time. I'm too old to start. I'm not smart enough. I'm too busy. Okay? 30 seconds and write yours. Your favorite excuses. All right, go ahead and put those down. All right, last question. I want you to envision yourself 5 years from now. All right, I want you to step into it like it happened. I want you to be full of gratitude. There's no wonder, no hope, like you're there. I want you to see it, feel it, experience it. Are you a grandma? Did you make your first $1 million? Did you start that new business? Did you write that book? Maybe you're traveling. So I want you to write down, who are you? What are you doing 5 years from now? Go. All right, there he goes. Stop, thank you. I love that song. I could have started singing, but I wouldn't want to hurt your ears. All right, I have 3 critical steps that I want to share with you on how I moved from unstable, unsteady, unsure inside to unshakable from the inside out. So we're going to park those exercises over here and get into the critical steps on how to embrace an unbreakable spirit. So I had to give up the fairy tale to get my happy ending. And what that means is I had to give up the lies I told myself, my quick fix ideas, my unrealistic codependent expectations that I had for a partner. I know I'm not the only one up here. The first thing I had to learn after my affairs, after divorce, after cancer, and after Philip and I separated was to choose me. I didn't know how to do that. So I like to call this the Choose Me Trinity. The Choose Me Trinity can be summed up in 3 words. I own it. It being my excuses, my attitudes, my indecisiveness, my life choices, my course of action, and be able to accept the good, the bad, and the ugly about myself. I want you to think this is everything and anything that you have a responsibility for or a commitment to improving in your life, cultivating, or eliminating in order for you to be forced out of passivity, forced out of comfort, and into a life of excellence. We have one life. The sand runs out on all of us. We have one life. What are we going to do? Doesn't matter how old you are. Doesn't matter what you've been through. This is your opportunity. The 3 most important relationships in this Trinity are God, others, and self. And the Choose Me Trinity was my way to start to build healthy, resilient relationships because I had to learn about prioritizing and learning to love myself. So I would argue that the more you know, love, and accept yourself, the more that you can know, love, and accept others and God more authentically. I had this therapist once, and we did a lot of talk therapy together. And at one point, she said, you know, I had a lot of paralysis of analysis and telling the same stories. And she said, Tracy, we're going to use this technique called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. So I come in, and she starts telling me to tap on myself. And I had no idea what we were doing, but she's tapping, and she's making me say weird things, and she's tapping, and I'm just following her going, I don't know what this lady is doing, but she's crazy. But all right, I'll do this. She's telling me to trust her. She's telling me that this might help me. So basically what I learned later on is that this helps to interrupt because it's meridian points that you're tapping on. And so she would have this mantra, and so we would take something I was stuck in, like, you know, even though my father called me Bucky Beaver, I love and accept myself. And she would make me say it over and over. And what I could not do was say, I love and accept myself. It was the hardest thing. Every time she would say that, I would cringe inside. I would get this ball in my throat, and I would repeat, but I definitely felt strange, awkward. And at one point I said, I don't know, I just can't say that. And then it dawned on me, it's because I didn't. I didn't love and accept myself. And I had to learn to do that. You know, most of us have heard this, hurt people. And that was me. So on my journey to love and accept myself, I hurt a lot of people. So I had to learn to forgive myself in that space. Now, a trinity, as you guys know, represents a triangle. A triangle is the strongest shape there is. Its weight is evenly distributed, and they're stable, rigid structures used in construction today. Triangles represents resilience. And that was something I wanted. I would see people who seemed to have, Philip talked about the gutter and looking up. I would just see these people that were so confident, so sure of themselves. And I could put on the act, I could act like I had it going on, but I didn't feel like that inside. I didn't feel like that inside at all. So to me, the Choose Me Trinity was about building resilience. Perhaps the most significant global impact that the triangle had when I was researching it is in navigation. And I thought this was interesting. If you think of, 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. When the ship went off course during a journey, whether it was because of an unfavorable wind or maybe the crew saw that there was some pirates that were following them, or maybe there was an island they had to go around, the crew would use mathematics of a triangle, a right triangle, in order to right the ship, to move it out of the way. So like a ship, there were times I got off course. There were times that I didn't like the uncomfortable things, so I would avoid it. I would fall back. I would not prioritize. Sometimes I wouldn't do that for somebody else's approval. But the question was, how quickly can I get back up? How fast can I bounce back from this experience? It was critical that during the times that I had setback or fear, that we do three things: inform myself, quicken myself, and transform me in those moments. So I had a client, let's call her Susie. She found me on the Googles. We set up a clarity call. She's describing her frustrations to me about, gaining weight, and she's tired. She's yo-yo dieting the last 30 years. I share how I can help her. She hires me, and we start. The first appointment she comes in, she's like 10 minutes early. She's got on her brand new sneakers and her Lululemon pants, and she tells me all the stuff she bought because she is ready to work out. This time is going to be different. She says, I've read all of your social media posts. I said, oh, you're the one. Thank you. She's got her planner with her vision and her meal prepping ideas, all the things. She's asking me all kinds of questions. And I'm thinking, this is going to be the easiest client to work with. She's so motivated. You know where this is going. By the end of the second week, she's late. She's coming in with like 2 different socks on, and her hair's all disheveled. She's making excuses why she didn't get her core exercises done, why she didn't track her app and her nutrition in her app, all the things. She's blaming her husband, her job, her kids. And a few weeks, goes by, and I'm just kind of watching this behavior, kind of assessing, gathering intel. And she comes in, and today she's looking rough. I mean, like the shirt's on backwards. Like she didn't even have time to change. She's like, I just got to wear these pants from work. I'm sorry. She just goes on the rower and she starts. And as she's rowing, she's just vomiting, right? Everything is happening at the mouth, and I'm just listening. I let it go by for a few minutes, and I say to her, Susie, I'm going to press pause. And she's looking at me, and she's like, there's no pause button. I'm the rower, Tracy. And I'm like, Susie, I'm gonna press pause. She looks at me a little offended and stops the rower, puts it up, and just stares at me. Now, I knew I had to break her negative cycling because I had been that person too. I knew that pressing pause was the gentlest way that I could get her to stop doing what she's doing, which is creating the same patterns in her brain over and over, telling herself the same story, and that's why she continues to do the same things. See, Susie's pattern was that everything else in her life was a priority except for her. She had no boundaries. She needed to learn to own her choices instead of looking outside of herself, saying, that's why, that's why, that's why. And learn strategies to love and accept herself, to forgive herself quickly, and recommit to her goals until it was part of her DNA. The next 2 years, Susie and I worked on these strategies, pressing pause, becoming aware of her thinking patterns that needed to be reframed, like choosing herself was selfish. And how much better of a mom was she, and a friend, and a partner. When Susie got clear, she became committed and built her confidence. And 3 things happened. She left a job that was ruining her health, moved into a position that just aligned with her better. She became a more present, connected mom and partner. And she stopped controlling others. That's codependency. And used the energy to pursue her own excellence. She was able to shift all that and start to look at how she could move forward, and that impacted everybody around her. So choose you. I promise you will attract a more authentic life, have better relationships, and a stronger commitment to everything you do. We good? Got it? Okay. Second one, brainwash yourself. I know it sounds a little odd. It's 1991. I'm standing on the track at the Aquinas Invitational Track Meet in Rochester, New York. I'm part of 2 of the best relay teams in New York State at the time, the 3,200 meter relay and the 1,600 meter relay, which most people go, ugh, yuck. Those are my favorite races. I'm standing on the line. I'm waiting for Shannon. It would be this way. This way, this is right. I'm waiting for Shannon to give me the baton. I'm the 3rd one in the relay. Now we have a lead. It's not a huge lead, but we have a decent lead. And as I'm standing there, all I'm thinking is, I want to quit. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. I should just go play softball. I'm a pitcher. My dad said that's a real sport anyway. This is not. So she hands me the baton and off I go. Why was I thinking I just want to quit? Because I had spent weeks and weeks and weeks with coaches, tightening my nutrition, going to bed, doing all these workouts, and I could not get my time to budge. All I wanted to do at 16 years old was to break 2 minutes and 38 seconds. That's all I wanted. Why can't I have this? I'm working so hard and seeing no result of my effort. I come around the first lap. Now, those of you that don't know, 800 meters is the 3,200 meter relay. I'm running 800. That's 2 laps around the track. The first lap I'm coming by, and Coach Wild is there with this timer. I run by, and he says, 70 seconds. So I'm thinking, all right, that's good. It's decent. So I'm running around the corner, and as I get to the straightaway on the back end of the track, I can feel the girl next to me kind of inching forward. I can feel her sweat. I can hear her breath. And I'm thinking still, all right, just hold the lead. Just hold the lead. Get the baton to Dawn. Dawn's a superstar. Like, she's going to blow him out of the water. Just hold the lead. I see Coach O in the distance. He's by the goalpost, and the guys that are doing long jump, and they're all screaming, "Go, Tracy, go, Tracy." And Coach O is saying, turn over, turn those legs over. And in that moment, I went from a quitter to a contender. And I turned on the gas, came around, I saw the finish line, and I gave Dawn the baton. Coach Wild says, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Yeah. Not only did I take off 8 seconds that day, but we broke the invitational and the school record in our high school. The 3,200 meter relay stayed up until 2 years ago. So over 20 years, that record stayed. But that experience taught me the power of the mind and the value of good coaching. They say the comeback is better than the setback. Well, that wasn't the case for me after cancer. The last decade has been me working really hard at learning how to retrain my body. So PT, chiropractor, infrared, cryotherapy, hyperbaric, therapist, you name it, I tried it. You can check my bank account. Trust me. But you want to know what I had to learn to retrain my body? I had to learn to breathe correctly again. I thought that was really weird at first, but this doctor said to me, you had surgery, and you had radiation, and you had chemo, and it affected my diaphragm and the way that I was breathing. My nervous system and my muscular system just weren't talking to each other, and I had to retrain that. See, you can look at somebody and think they're physically recovered. They should be fine. You've gone through trauma in your life as a child. Why aren't you fine? You've gone through a divorce. You should be fine. You look okay. You look okay to me. People with chronic illness, they look okay. What I had to realize is that our nervous system can be out of whack, right? It's our electrical system. It's like in a house, if your electric doesn't work, you can't turn on the lights. And for me, my body did not know how to breathe correctly again. So this changed the way I received feedback, and it also can change the way that we respond to things. I had to realize I had to train my mind like I trained my body. And this was the next course of action for me. I had to retrain my mind to let go of fear and hopelessness. I had to be just as intentional to train my mind to build new patterns like I would my body. I had to use progressive strategies so that I would not overwhelm my system. If somebody comes into me, I remember when I was at a CrossFit gym, I walked in and they handed me a big old, 45. Now, I knew how to do a clean, but I'm thinking there's people that walk in here that have never been an athlete in their life and they're about to do a clean or a snatch. You have to be progressive. I had to be progressive and know how to give myself grace when I didn't follow through the way that I needed to. And then I had to brainwash myself out of old thought patterns. This is what has enabled me to help clients. Like the 3 questions you answered at the beginning, I had to get really clear on what I wanted. I had to know my own excuses so that when they came up, I was able to face them instead of avoid them. And I had to create a future avatar so I could see where I was going and then what I needed to do to get there. So if this is where I want to be, what do I need? I had to have the vision, and then I had to know what I needed to get there. I read somewhere that our brain is our superpower, and we can brainwash ourselves to adapt to anything we want. I think any survivor of trauma would tell you that. You learn to adapt. But we have to commit to the process, just like you do when you want to lose weight or you want to get stronger. You have to commit to the process. I had to brainwash myself through grief and into my new future self. One of my favorite movies is Eat, Pray, Love with Julia Roberts. And there is a scene and one of my favorite lines, She goes to 3 places, if you haven't seen it. She eats in Italy, prays in India, finds love in Bali. So she's in India. She meets this guy, Richard from Texas. Richard Jenkins plays the character. And he's real frustrated with her. And he calls her groceries because she likes to eat a lot. So she's sitting there with her groceries, eating away. He comes in and she's just mulling over. She's like hanging on to this guy that she loves and she wishes she could talk to him. And he says, groceries, you need to select your thoughts like you select your clothes every day. And that stuck with me. And it gave me this aha moment. Like, we have the power to select our thoughts. But how many times do we just kind of get up and we don't go out of the house naked? We select our clothes, but we walk around letting all these thoughts come our way, believing we're the victim in the circumstance. We have 70,000 thoughts a day, and we're aware of about 5%. And I wanted to learn to take those 5% captive. And I did that with a series of what I like to call mental repeats. When you're in track, they make you do what's called mile repeats. And so when you would run cross country, we would have to run a 5K. And so sometimes in the training, what they would have you do is they'd say, okay, you have to hit every mile we're gonna do today, hit it at 5 minutes and 45 seconds. So you would go, you would run. If you didn't hit it, usually there was some, punishment that you had to do. And you would build up your base. You'd build up your body like that. So I like to call this the break, the stop, start cycle, because I had to learn to use mental repeats the same as I used mile repeats. So this is how you become the champion of your mind. Number 1, pressing pause, like I did with Susie. Being aware of my triggers or the things that were trapping me. Using breath work to calm my system. Stay curious if this thought is helping me or is it hurting me, and then learning new ways to reframe my thoughts, which, I worked with coaches and counselors and to do that. And then discipline. Everybody hates that word. This is rinse, repeat, practice, right? So it reminded me of, if you think of discipline, I think of when Dorothy and her friends in The Wizard of Oz are traveling along the yellow brick road, and they've just come out of the dark forest. They've gone through some stuff. And then they go, oh, look, there is a shortcut of poppies. Let's go take the shortcut. And there they go, and we all know what happens, right? The witch has poisoned the poppies. They fall asleep, they lose some time, and they get off track. This is what happens to us, right? We get tired, we get stressed, we get off track, we beat ourselves up, and then it takes longer to get on track. We use shortcuts when we're uncomfortable, which leads us off that yellow brick road and into our favorite flavors of distractions, right? Social media, maybe alcohol, maybe other people, maybe organizing, cleaning your house. I used to love that one. Or destructive thinking, catastrophic thinking, all or nothing thinking, paralysis of analysis, whatever flavor you choose, we all have a couple. I had to remind myself I have to stay the course, and then I get back home, just like Dorothy and her friends. If she stayed on the yellow brick road, she was going to get to Emerald City faster. And then evolve, and that is creating that avatar. Who am I 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? So I didn't get stuck. Because when I had cancer, it was my worst enemy. I was paralyzed with fear, and I was really doing whatever I could to avoid surgery. Researching, crazy stuff they were doing back then. Still probably are. And none of it was something I could do. One day, I had to go for a colonoscopy. So I had had 28 chemoradiation sessions, ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks. And then in between that time period, I had to go for a colonoscopy and then get surgery that I was trying to avoid, because I didn't want to have to live with a bag hanging off my body my whole life. I think you can understand. I was a trainer. It was my favorite part of my body. I felt like I was still like, cute and attractive. And I didn't want to have to go through it. So how can I avoid this? I got Dr. Macaluso. He was supposed to be one of the best surgeons. I kind of come out of the colonoscopy and I can hear like them talking. And I hear him say words like, no tumor, no evidence of disease, everything looks good. So as they wheel me back, Philip's sitting, waiting for me. And I'm like eating my crackers, my graham crackers, my juice. It's like my favorite thing after a colonoscopy. And I was like, I think it's really good. I might not have to have that surgery. Like he said no tumor. He didn't see anything. Dr. Macaluso comes in the room at some point and says, okay, guys, it looks really good. It looks really good. Now, we won't know until we go in to do surgery, if the lymph nodes were affected. But once we get in there, we'll take out the scar tissue. And I said, well, if it's really good, then why do we have to do that surgery? Like, can I avoid that? Like, what would we need to do here? And he said to me, well, Tracy, the tumor got stuck in the sphincter muscle. And so there's really no way that we can avoid it. And we have to take margin. Any of you have been through cancer, you have to take margin so that they can make sure that it hasn't spread. And I thought, gosh, I really, do people, not do this? I'm trying to still, work it out. And he looks at me and he says, what grade are your boys in? And I said, 2nd and 4th grade. And he says to me, do you want to see them graduate? I said, well, yeah. You want to see them graduate from high school? Then I'd get the surgery. Before that, I thought I would rather die than get the surgery. But then this is what he says to me. And it really shifted my thinking. I came across an Instagram post recently that reminded me of this. There was a girl, her name's Jessie. She was a 7-figure network marketer, 34 years old, no kids, never been married, but made this huge impact on this network marketing group. She had found out that she had cancer back in February, and they gave her 2 choices. Either number 1, you could do nothing, and you'll be dead by October, or you can do treatments, 18 months probably is what you got. Not going to be great quality of life. So she decides, I have the resources, I'm just going to go ahead and do nothing. So she's on the Ed Mylett show. Ed Mylett is like a global entrepreneur and coach. He's got a podcast. He's amazing. If you've never heard of him, go check him out. And he's interviewing her, and she says, I just had a PET scan. They saw no disease. This is like mid-September. She's like, they gave me till October, but I'm feeling good, and she's dreaming big and all the things she still wants to do. And then a week later, she calls him and says, they're giving me 2 days to live. 2 days. What would you do with 2 days? What would you do with 2 weeks, 2 years? Would you write that book? Would you change jobs? Would you visit that friend or maybe mend that relationship? So what I want you to do now is we're going to play a song. It's one of my favorite songs by Rascal Flatts. It's called When the Sand Runs Out. That's why I got my hourglass up here. Because obviously when you're faced with any illness, you do realize that time is short. And so we're going to play this song, and I want you guys to write in that little journal, I want you to write your legacy list. Are you going to eliminate regret, shame, catastrophic thinking, go see Italy, build that business? So I'm going to have Abner go ahead and play that song. This is the correct song. This is the right song. That's okay. That was a good one too.
I spent the morning at an old friend's grave. Flowers in amazing grace. He was a good man. He spent his whole life spinning his wheels, never known how the real thing feels. He never took a chance or took the time to dance. And I stood there thinking as I said goodbye. Today's the first day of the rest of my life. I'm gonna stop looking back and start moving on. Learn how to face my fears. Love with all of my heart and make my mark. I wanna leave something here. Go out on a limb without any net. That's what I'm gonna be about. Yeah, I wanna be running when the sand runs out. 'Cause people do it every day. Promise themselves they're gonna change, I've been there. But I'm changing from the inside out. That was then and this is now. I'm a new man. Yeah, I'm a brand new man. And when they carve my stone, they'll write these words. Here lies a man who lived life for all that it's worth. I'm gonna stop looking back and start moving on. Learn how to face my fears. Love with all of my heart and make my mark. I wanna leave something here. Go out on a limb without any net. That's what I'm gonna be about. Yeah, I wanna be running when the sand runs out. And as the cold wind blows across the graveyard, I think I hear the voice of my old friend whisper in my ear. I'm gonna stop looking back and start moving on and learn how to face my fears. Love with all of my heart and make my mark. I wanna leave something here. Go out on a limb without any net. That's what I'm gonna be about. Yeah, I wanna be running when the sand runs out. I wanna be running when the sand runs out.
All right, good. How was that? Does anybody want to share their legacy list? No? Everybody's like, no way. Never. We're going to have a little time where we're going to have some Q&A at the end. So let me finish my third critical step. University of Adversity. A university nobody wants to sign up for or go to, but we all do if we have lived this life. Nothing builds confidence from the inside out like adversity. And it's, I think about the beginning of things. The beginning of anything is super exciting, right? Like Susie coming in and she's all like dressed to the nines, ready to go, ready to work out, super motivated. You get to the middle of something, it's full of uncertainty, right? And it reminds me of like stepping out onto that college campus your freshman year. How many of you went to college? You remember this? I remember this because I couldn't find the dining hall. I was dressed up. It was the first day of school. I don't know why the other people didn't get the memo who were wearing sweatshirts and jean shorts, but I was dressed nice for my first day of school because I was a freshman. I couldn't find my first class. I was walking these obscure hallways trying to find, and of course all the buildings are miles apart. And you feel so awkward and uncertain and scared, and this is hard. And then the next year you walk on campus like it's no big deal, right? But the middle is always uncertain. And then the end is full of exhilaration. We all love being able to ring the bell, get the diploma, get the trophy, get our name up on the wall when we've accomplished something. But it's the middle that is hard. And I think I would say most of us spend most time in the middle. And then we try to find ways to get out of it. Because we long for the beginning, or we long for the end, or can it be exciting? And it's just not like that, not at the University of Adversity. Adversity sets us up for our training ground for greatness and excellence. And you know, Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness preparing. He was testing his ability. He was asking, am I unshakable? He had to turn down offers that were tempting. Fame, money, ego. This built his confidence. It gave him mastery before he began living out his purpose, his ministry, his destiny. See, the wilderness helps you know that you know that you know that you have mastered something. For me, it was being unshakable from the inside out. And you know you can live out that training because you've done the hard work. You've gone through it. You got clear. You eliminated the things that no longer work. You replaced it with good things, things that were helping you move forward into that vision of who you see yourself. And you were able to rebuild a new happy ending. As I was preparing for this talk, there were weeks and weeks I was waking up with my heart racing, sweating, and I was feeling full of just insecurity and fear. I didn't really want to go to the wilderness to look because I had things to do. I had clients. I had to get ready for this event that I put on the calendar that I thought was a really good idea because I don't know, I wanted to give myself some pressure so that I would get on stage and I would do what I've been working on. And after a phone call that kind of offended me, I sat there kind of mulling it over and went to bed that night, kind of expressed some things to Philip, maybe a lot of things for like maybe 20 minutes, probably a while, and went to bed that night, and I woke up, and I realized I could clearly see these two voices that had been buried deep in the roots that I kept avoiding, I didn't want to see, but had been with me for a really long time. And the two voices were, you should be ashamed of yourself to tell your story, and who is going to care what you have to say? And like I said at the beginning, I had to learn to know, love, and accept myself authentically. And in order for me to do that, I had to go get my PhD at the University of Adversity. And in that moment, I had to dig as to what these voices were trying to teach me, tell me, what was I avoiding, and I had to look at those things. The coursework at this university taught me that it takes a lifetime to become the person you're supposed to be. And hear me that I didn't say should, because I like to tell people, stop shoulding on yourself. Because we all do it, right? Every time you say that, just do 10 push-ups. I promise you, if you get down to do 10 push-ups, you will not say it again. And the word I can't, right? We need to get rid of that one too. A lifetime to become the person you're supposed to be. You're not finished. It doesn't matter how old you are. Failure and loss can hit us hard, and there are many days I wanted to cocoon like a butterfly. And I remembered something when I was researching the butterfly. My business is Mosiac Fitness and Nutrition. If you've ever seen my logo, it's a butterfly. And what I learned when I was researching the butterfly is that the caterpillar has formed this shell called a chrysalis around itself, and then there's the cocoon. And in the chrysalis is when all the magic happens, but it's alone, and it's in the dark, and it's struggling when it starts to realize it's time to push its way out. And so that butterfly starts to chip away and struggle through the cocoon when it's ready to fly. And if we were to go over and help that butterfly, the butterfly would die. And the reason it would die is because the struggle that it has to go through is what gives blood to those wings. And so I realized that there's strength in the struggle. So everything I've been through is a gift. Cancer is a gift. My failures in my first marriage were a gift. The trauma from my childhood was a gift. And everything that you guys have been through or done to somebody else, it's not wasted. You have gleaned wisdom, and then you have learned, and then you teach someone else, and you learn, and you teach someone else, and you have a world of wisdom to give to the people that you have in front of you. I had to realize these voices do not have to define me any longer. And I think when I got some clarity, and do you ever feel like that? You get some clarity on something and light is shed on it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it doesn't have as much power as it once did. I stopped waking up with all that on me. But I had to go and get real. I had to get authentic. I had to take a look in the mirror. I had to wrestle with those lies and realize that those same lies trained me to be empathetic, compassionate, and they led me to my purpose. And the ripple effect that all of you have had on people's lives is going to be here along on the earth, even after you're gone, even after the sand runs out. So as for me, 8 years after Dr. Macaluso said, do you want to see your kids graduate? I have seen one. And there he is. 9 years cancer thriving. This past May, I got to see Tristan graduate, and I get to see Ryan in 2025. Choose you, brainwash yourself out of those old thoughts, and get your PhD at the University of Adversity, and you will build a new beginning. Thank you. So I wanted to share a little vision about what we're doing here, and Philip's going to come up in just a second. In 2016, I was sitting at a women's event, and we were in the beginning, really, of everything we went through. And I remember seeing this image of broken pieces, and I started to say, I'm not broken. Like, this can be a masterpiece. Like, there can be something good from this. And I was in the middle. I didn't know how we were going to ever be able to mend these things at that point. But I saw this vision of just this mosaic, which gave me my business name. Not only did I see that, but I saw these other people on stage, and I remember thinking, I'm supposed to be there, and there's going to be thousands and thousands of people. And I did not see a path at that point. And so this is our first annual Hack the Hope Summit. And the reason that we wanted to do this was two reasons. One, I've been working on a speaking warrior mastermind. My friend Jeremy here is in that mastermind with me. We've been working really hard all year, working on that initial story I tell you when I first came on stage. And not only that, but I wanted to be able to say, let's put our stories together. Because what I see next year is more hope dealers coming to the stage, sharing stories that help inspire people, help move them forward, help them to learn to turn their pain to purpose. So what we really want to do right now, come on up, hon, is just take a few minutes and just hear from you guys. Like, what did you like about this? What stuck with you about our training, our talks, all that? You love the music? Cool. Thank you, Kelly. You loved Rudy. Rudy gets to the root of the problem. I know. We're going to do that for you, Elise. What else?
I like that. I like that, Randy. Shannon.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shannon. And let me just add. So, like I said, Shannon and I have known each other for 50 years, and Shannon's son Garrett plays Major League Baseball with type 1 diabetes. And he has been a huge overcomer. And so, you know, hearing his story and watching him from the sideline like I have, that's inspiring too. So thank you for sharing that.
Anybody else?
Jeremy.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Steve. That's great marketing that I love from him.
You want to repeat that?
What, so what, now what?
That's it.
It's a great way to story tell. I have a lot of Steve-isms. He gives me a lot of good stuff. I tell him on Tuesday, Thursday, we're writing a book one day, Steve-isms. What I learned, it's like Tuesdays with Maury, Tuesdays with Steve. That's going to be the book.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, well, if anybody else if we don't have anything else, what I want to do now is Tristan's going to pass out. There is a program. It has the Burning Limb information on one side. There's a QR code if you or anybody you know would want to donate. You know, it's interesting because whenever he tells his story, 9 times out of 10, somebody will meet somebody in the next month that has that condition. It just always happens. So if you know anybody who is looking for a cause to donate to, please feel free to do that. The other side of it is me, Mosiac, and I have what's called the Finally Fit coaching system. It's kind of the all-inclusive one-stop shop to all your, fitness, nutrition, and really life coaching needs. So I'm entering into a phase. I'm still doing my personal training and nutrition, but I'm starting to do more life coaching, and I'm going to be starting Thrive Tribe groups and all that. There is a free downloadable either there or you can use the QR code on the form. Also, we have comment cards inside those little thank you boxes. We would love to hear your comments if you didn't want to share or you were like, that was awful, I'm exhausted, now I'm going to bed, whatever. You can give them to Tristan. He's going to be our comment card boy. You don't have to put your name on it. And then we have, what else do we have?
A couple things. We've got some gifts for you. So in your box should be my business card. If you turn on the back, you just want a free t-shirt. Give me an email with your size, and I will order one and have it delivered to you.
Unless we have it out there.
Unless we have it out there. Yep.
Yep. And then there's also, some of you might find a little gift card. Like some of the boxes had some free things. So just kind of look in there and, yep. And that's it. Other than that, we are so thankful that you guys spent a Saturday with us. Saturday is a really hard day. I've had so many friends that either, if they have small kids, they're at sporting events. And I was like, whoever's supposed to be here is going to come. So what I would love to do is just have everybody come up on stage. We're going to take a quick picture, if we could do that. We're just going to